Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The day was October 10th. It was the day of the anniversary of the day when the Yondaime himself to save the village from the wrath of the Kyuubi. On this day, the entire village celebrated the Kyuubi's destruction and the service that the Yondaime gave to this village. It was a joyous day, filled with cheers, festivities, and fun. However, for one person in the village hidden in the leaves, October 10th was the worst day out of the year. This person was Naruto Uzumaki. Today was Naruto's birthday, the day he would turn 12. Today should be a happy day for him. Today should be a day of celebration. However, for the past 6 years, since the first time he actually participated in the festivities of the day of October 10th was a day of fear and hiding. Now, the villagers had never been fond of Naruto, in fact they hated him. However, he could usually tolerate this as they normally just looked down on him with scorn and hatred. Usually, these were just looks and he would not be in any sort of danger. This day was different. He had first attended the festivities of the day when he was 6. For the week, he was in the ICU wing of the hospital. The injuries he sustained would have put a normal person in the ICU for months. However, Naruto's increased healing factor helped out. The next 5 years were not too much better. While he had not been admitted to the hospital, the villagers would pick this day in particular to hunt him down and try to kill him before the Anbu could arrive to save him. He never understood why. Why did they hate him so much? Why did they want to kill him? Why did they always refer to him as that demon brat? It wasn't until recently that he found out why. The Yondaime never killed the Kyuubi and in fact sealed the Kyuubi inside Naruto. Naruto knew the Kyuubi never meant to harm the village, but the villagers didn't know that and they would probably never understand. Naruto had gotten up early in the morning and was preparing himself for the upcoming day. He had to get out of his apartment quick and go find some place on the outskirts of the village so that the villagers wouldn't find him and he would be able to perhaps get in some training. This was the only thing about today that Naruto was looking forward to, an entire day of training with no one to bother him, hopefully. However, there was one more thing that he found himself enjoying about this day in particular. It was on this day, about 4 years ago, that he found out that there is actually someone in the village that cares enough for him. 4 years ago, he found a wrapped gift card to his favorite place, Ichiraku, tucked underneath his door. At first, he thought it was the village playing a joke on him, getting his hopes up by giving him an empty gift card. However, he soon realized that card had enough on it for practically a month's worth of ramen. He was ecstatic. The next year, another present was left by his door. This time, it was Gama-chan, the frog wallet that he had looked at in the store for days on end. It was wrapped the same way as the gift card was, hinting that it was from the same person. The following year, wrapped the same way, was a box containing his signature orange jacket. Again, this had been something that he had wanted for weeks before his birthday, but he had never been able to afford it. He asked the old man, the third Hokage, who was one of the very few who actually cared for Naruto, if he had gotten him the jacket. The Sandaime indicated that it wasn't him. This only made Naruto happier, knowing that there was actually someone else in the village who cared. Last year was just as good. He got the pair of goggles that he had desperately wanted, which were again too expensive for him. While he no longer wore the goggles, replaced by his Konoha headband, he had a special place for them on his shelf. His only regret is that he didn't know who it was that had given him these presents so that he could thank them properly. Naruto was just about ready to head out when he heard a knock on his door. He was cautious as a knock on his door today was usually preceded by a loud crash of the door being in and an angry mob chasing after him. However, a familiar voice that he trusted followed the knock. Naruto, are you in there? Naruto opened the door to reveal Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi-sensei, what are you doing here? Asked Naruto. Just thought I'd stop by and wish you a happy birthday. And to give you these. Kakashi handed Naruto a pack of 20 coupons for a free bowl of Ichiraku. I'm sorry to say that I wasn't really sure what else to give you. Naruto smiled at his sensei's present. Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, said Naruto. However, these were not wrapped like the presents from the past years, and Kakashi's laziness preceded him as the coupons had been slightly crumpled in his back pouch. While they were still a present and they were still valid, he could tell that Kakashi was not the person that had been giving him gifts all these years. Before leaving, Kakashi informed Naruto that Iruka wanted to meet up with him later for dinner. Iruka-sensei was one of the other few in the village who Naruto could truly trust on this day. Naruto took off for training ground 40, located on the outskirts of Konoha, and off-limits to civilians. It was here that he was hoping to get some time by himself, at least until Iruka wanted to meet up with him. Iruka had told Kakashi to pass on to Naruto to meet him inside the Hokage Tower at around 8 and he would bring Ichiraku takeout. This was fine for Naruto as the Hokage Tower was actually one of the most secure buildings in the village and the shinobi population wasn't the ones behind the numerous lynch mobs that he had to evade every year on this day. Before leaving, Naruto transformed, learning long ago that it wasn't safe for him to look like Naruto while traveling through the village today. For some reason, he transformed himself into Sasuke and took off. He was doing fine. No angry mobs, no distractions, and he was almost out of the actual village portion of Konoha. Once he reached the training grounds, it would be smooth sailing. However, he hit a bump when Sakura spotted him and took off after him, thinking that he was actually Sasuke. Naruto was trying to lose her, not wanting any unwanted attention for today, even if it was from Sakura, and passed through. It was unfortunate that his path took him through training ground 9, where the real Sasuke was training. Also, Naruto wasn't watching where he was going and crashed into Sasuke. Sakura just stood there, looking at the pile of Sasukes. One of them dispersed, revealing it to be Naruto, and Sakura suddenly became enraged that Naruto had transformed into Sasuke. She thought it to be some trick of his to get her to go out on a date with him. Naruto, growled Sakura, cracking her knuckles. Sasuke wasn't pleased either that Naruto had transformed into him, again. Naruto let out a slight gulp. Sakura, please, you don't understand, said Naruto. Oh yeah, you were trying to use Sasuke's appearance to get me to go on a date with you, she said. No, that's not it. And please, keep it down, begged Naruto. Oh yeah, and why should I? Asked Sakura, growing increasingly irritated. You've done this before, remember the first day as a team? Yeah, I knew it was you. No wait, please Sakura, said Naruto, slowly backing away. Sakura, just hold on a moment. Something doesn't seem right, said Sasuke, stopping his pink-haired teammate. Huh, what do you mean, Sasuke? Aren't you angry that he transformed into you again? Asked Sakura. Well yeah, but something is different about Naruto today. He seems completely on edge, like he's worried about something, explained Sasuke. At least give him the chance to explain himself. UHG fine. Alright, out with it Naruto, demanded Sakura. Naruto took a deep breath and let out a slight sigh of relief. You know what today is, don't you? Asked Naruto. It's the day where the entire village celebrates the Yondaim's defeat over the Kyuubi. However, because of my, condition, many of the villagers choose today to hunt me down and try to kill me. The faces of Naruto's teammates froze with horror. Naruto explained the first time he went to the festival that was held in the evening and how he ended up in the ICU for weeks. I was taking Sasuke's appearance so I could get to the training grounds on the outskirts of the village and away from the villages for today, explained Naruto. Sakura regretted getting mad at him and Sasuke just nodded, letting Naruto be on his way towards the training ground he was planning on staking out for the day. So Sasuke, since we're here, together, do you want to go to the festival later tonight? Sakura asked, trying to get Sasuke to go out on a date with her by going to the annual festival that was scheduled for later that evening. Don't you have anything better you could be doing? Like training, said Sasuke, deflating Sakura. He took off himself to go meet up with Kakashi. Kakashi had arranged to train him today to control the cat Sasuke could summon, as he couldn't be summoning that demon every time he wanted to summon a cat. After all, even the Jonin senseis never enjoyed being stuck with the infamous Capture Tora mission. Today's the day. Today's the day I finally let Naruto know there is someone in this village that cares for him, thought Hinata as she traveled through the village carrying the necessary ingredients she needed for Naruto's very first birthday cake, or at least she hoped it was his first. She made her way to the compound where Hanabi was impatiently waiting for her. This was her opportunity for some free cake batter, and no self-respecting 6-year-old was going to pass this up. Hinata began the preparations for making the cake. The first thing that needed to be done was the pan design. She had gotten a special kit a few years ago that allowed her to create custom pan shapes, and she went ahead assembling it. The cake itself wasn't that large, as she planned on making a double-layered cake and the kit only had so many pieces. At least from her experience, the perfect amount of layers on a cake was 2. Not enough, and the cake wasn't as filling, while too many and there was an increased chance of the cake falling apart. The second step to making the cake was deciding the shape of the cake. This is where her obsession with the blonde boy took over, and she began assembling her pan kit in the shape of Naruto's head. The bottom half of the pan was round, with the top half having spikes coming from it, resembling his hair. The third thing to decide was the type of cake to be made. She opted to go with the more traditional white cake, as she still wasn't sure on Naruto's preferences, despite following him all these years. The fourth thing that needed to be decided was the type of icing to use. To her, it had to be a buttercream type, as it was simply the best and nothing compared to it. The last and final touches on the cake were the most important. This was the decorations on the cake. It couldn't be too plain, nor could it be too much over the top. The look of the cake was just as important as the taste. The two factors had to balance with one another perfectly, or the entire cake itself was ruined. After all her planning was done, Hinata, with the help of her younger sister, took to beginning the cake. Directly after the ingredients were mixed together, Hinata was called into the other room by her father. The bowl of delicious cake batter was way too much for Hanabi to resist, and without anyone to stop her, she quickly went to work. Naruto was jumping through the trees. He was only a few more hops away from his desired training location. He let out a sigh of relief as he discovered that no one was there when he had arrived. The first hour of his personal training session was nothing more than a series of warm-ups and katas that he was performing with a clone. In a few past meetings, Kakashi-sensei had suggested that Naruto should try to refine his taijutsu, as it was still rather sloppy, despite taijutsu being one of his better subjects in the academy. He had been given a book on basic taijutsu practices from Kakashi, and he figured it wouldn't hurt for him to go through it. Afterwards, he proceeded to a bit of weapons training, and this was what he was looking forward to. Jiraiya had mentioned that the wind jutsu he had learned, the futon, gale palm, worked well in conjunction with projectiles, helping to propel them forward at an increased velocity. This took up about 2 more hours of his training, as he worked on getting the jutsu off quick enough to be of use in increasing the speed of projectiles. It was going to be difficult for him to throw the shuriken himself and cast the jutsu before the kunai and shuriken made contact. However, he was quickly finding that if a clone was the one doing the jutsu, he could manage to make the jutsu effective. Next step would be to add that in with his shuriken shadow clone jutsu. However, that would have to wait, as he heard someone jump down behind him. Naruto feared that someone had found him, in particular someone who was a part of Konoha's annual demon hunt. Somewhere in the village, a crowd of roughly 100 villagers had assembled, knives, swords, pitchforks, and anything sharp at hand. This was the year that they finished what the Yondaime Hokage had begun 12 years ago. This was the year they were finally going to rid the village of the demon brat. Unfortunately for the patrons wielding pitchforks and larger weapons, they were forced to trade them in for much smaller knives, as they couldn't go marching around with pitchforks and torches waving through the air. That would draw too much attention to the ANBU, even if they would have received the support of most of the civilian population. Besides, pitchforks were outdated, belonging in the era of the old black and white monster movies. It was nearly time. The group of villagers participating in this year's demon hunt would break up into teams of 4 and scour the village for him. One found, the remaining teams would be notified and they would swarm the location, finally putting an end to the menace that had plagued their village for the past 12 years. There was only one thing left to do. All the villagers gather 1,000 ryo each and put it into a pot. The one who delivered the finishing blow to the demon child would receive the 100,000 ryo that was gathered by the group. Of course, the purse was nearing 1 million ryo, as the pots from the previous years carried over. Yo! Gar! Pervy sage! Shouted Naruto, realizing who it was who had jumped down behind him. Don't scare me like that. Oh, sorry. I guess this day in particular must have you on edge, said Jiraiya. Naruto decided now would be a good time to take a break as Jiraiya began to unpack some food from his pack. The two sat down underneath a tree and enjoyed their lunch together. Shortly after, Jiraiya reached into his pack and pulled out 3 wrapped objects, handing them to Naruto. Huh, what are these? Asked Naruto. Just a little something to say happy birthday. Even you deserve that much, said Jiraiya. Besides Jiraiya, the old man, his mysterious admirer, Iruka-sensei, and Kakashi-sensei had so far been the only ones to acknowledge his birthday. Naruto didn't know what to expect as he sat there staring at the wrapped presents, almost like he was analyzing them. Huh, what's the matter, Naruto? It's just nothing, said Naruto. Jiraiya could tell that he probably wasn't used to getting presents. In reality, Naruto was examining the packages. They weren't wrapped that well and Jiraiya apologized, never being that good at wrapping gifts. That meant Jiraiya wasn't the unknown gift giver. Regardless, Naruto thanked his pervy teacher and began opening the presents. The first one turned out to be a jutsu scroll and Jiraiya told him that he should begin working on that jutsu next in his wind nature training. Opening the scroll it read Futon, Whirlwind Fist. After further examining the technique, he discovered that this was a high C rank technique that encased his fists in a swirling wind, blasting the opponent back upon impact. The second present was a pair of kunai. However, these weren't ordinary kunai. Naruto stared in awe as he saw that these kunai were 3-pronged. He had never seen anything like these and they felt different from ordinary kunai. They were more dense and sharper. Jiraiya told Naruto to channel some of his wind-natured chakra into the kunai. Naruto did as Jiraiya said and he saw a bluish-white chakra blade extend from the blade of the knife. Pervy sage. What are these? Asked Naruto, both curious and amazed. Those are special kunai composed of a metal that channels chakra easy. They also take on the property of the chakra channeled through them, explained Jiraiya as he picked up the other knife and channeled some of his fire chakra into the knife. The knife began to glow a deep red and even whitish color. Being the curious kid he was, Naruto actually proceeded to touch Jiraiya's blade only to burn himself. Jiraiya laughed at Naruto trying to cool off his hand. With your wind chakra in particular, an extended and sharpened blade is created. Why don't you see through that tree with one of those? Jiraiya pointed to a tree, a little over a foot in diameter and Naruto stared in disbelief. How could a simple knife see through a tree in a single blow? Naruto proceeded to the tree and focused some wind chakra into his blade, aimed for the tree and swung. A small C was made in the tree, but it looked as if nothing else had happened. See, you can't see through a tree with just a knife, no matter how cool it looks. Naruto spoke too soon as he was forced to avoid a tree that was falling directly where he was standing, giving both Jiraiya and the Kyuubi a laugh. After some more admiring of those knives, Jiraiya explained to be careful with those. They weren't ordinary kunai and were expensive. They weren't meant to be disposable like ordinary kunai. Naruto proceeded to the final package. It was rectangular in shape and about the size of a book. Thoughts on what it was were going through Naruto's head and he was hoping it wasn't what he was thinking. Jiraiya got a devious smile on his face. Naruto carefully opened the package. It was what he had feared as he read the Ica Paradise. Naruto nearly faltered as the fox burst out in laughter. What the hell is this, you old pervert? I'm not into this kind of stuff. I've already had the unfortunate pleasure of seeing Kakashi read this dirty book and if you think you're going to turn me into a pervert, you're mistaking. Shouted Naruto, completely forgetting that he was there so no one would find him. Jiraiya couldn't stop laughing and let the joke go on for a while before removing the dirt cover on the book. The book enclosed by the cover was Enlid, the tale of a gutsy ninja. Huh, what's this? That is my first book, and don't worry this isn't an adult novel. I wrote this before I became an author of the Ica series but to be honest it didn't sell too well. However, I actually feel you might like this, besides there is something about this book that might interest you. Naruto was intrigued and took a look at the first page, and much to his surprise there was something about this book that interested him. The main character's name was Naruto. Perv sage, thank you, was all Naruto could get out. No need to worry. It is your birthday after all, said Jiraiya. Now, Tsunade said she had something for you as well, but she's going to be busy all day with paperwork so I wouldn't stop by until later. Okay, I'll stop by after I get ramen with Iruka-sensei then, said Naruto. Jiraiya stayed with Naruto and supervised his training for few hours. In reality, he was busy writing something about getting the next Ika to the publisher in the next month. Throughout the rest of the afternoon, there were a few thoughts going through his head. Pervy Sage, Kakashi-sensei, Iruka-sensei, and Tsunade all cared about his birthday, not to mention the Ichirakus who had designed a special bowl of ramen just for him on this day. Would anyone else? His team. The other members of the Rookie Nine. Hinata. That last name concerned him the most. Out of anyone he could think of, her name had the biggest impact on him. Would she care? Later that evening, Naruto snuck back into the village to the Ichirakus. Iruka had failed at getting a secure room inside the Hokage Tower, but Tsuki and Ayami had agreed to let them eat in private inside the house portion of their shop. Naruto transformed himself, this time into someone who wouldn't get every fangirl's attention. He transformed himself this time into Shizune, after all, who would attack the Hokage's assistant. The trip to Ichiraku's was smooth and he got there without drawing any attention. After letting Tsuki know who it was, he was let inside where Iruka had just arrived a few minutes before. Iruka, however, had a friend with him. Fortunately for Naruto, this was one friend that was just that, a friend. Hey Konohamaru, what you doing here? Asked Naruto. Iruka-sensei told me it was your birthday and I asked him if I could come wish you a happy birthday, replied Konohamaru. Besides, it beats walking around the village being called the honorable grandson by everyone in the village. I'd rather be called that than the demon brat, thought Naruto. Naruto hadn't seen Iruka-sensei or Konohamaru in a while, so there was lots to talk about, including his little adventure to bring Tsunade back and the new stuff he learned. Iruka was impressed that Naruto had already begun training with the wind element, making Konohamaru's desire to learn cool jutsu such as that even greater. Iruka was going to have a handful with this next generation Naruto, as some had dubbed Konohamaru. Konohamaru had picked up Naruto's mantle of prank master after Naruto had left the academy. Of course, Konohamaru's pranks were nothing compared to Naruto, but he was still young. After a while, Tsuki and Ayami closed shop and joined them, not that they didn't see enough of Naruto already. It was getting late and Naruto figured he had better go see Tsunade Barken before it got too late. Before he could reach the door, Iruka caught him and placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, I have a bad feeling. I'm coming too, but we need to get to the tower quick, said Iruka. Naruto nodded, knowing what Iruka was hinting towards. Konohamaru, on the other hand, didn't have a clue. Iruka told him to trust in his sensei and Naruto transformed into Shizune as the two exited the Ichirakus. Camped outside the Ichirakus was a group of this year's demon hunt. They had seen Shizune enter the ramen maker's home and that would have been alright, if it hadn't been for the real Shizune passing by them just a few minutes past. These villagers knew this was one of Naruto's favorite spots in the village and figured he would show up here eventually. With Shizune entering the house in the back and the real Shizune passing him a few moments later without any sign of the Shizune inside the house leaving, they deduced that the Shizune inside the house was in fact the demon brat. Seeing this, they notified the rest of the lynch mob and positions were taken up surrounding the house. Suddenly, what they had been waiting for came walking out of the door. Despite standing next to Iruka, there was Shizune, or the demon brat. The villager picked up a rather large stone and tossed it towards Naruto, hitting the transformed ninja in the face and dispelling the transformation. OWW. What was that foe? Naruto trailed off as he opened his eyes to see about 24 villagers in front of him, intent spilling out from the very core of their souls and blades in hand. Swore Naruto. Kit, run, advised Kurama. He couldn't fight the villagers as hurting them would only make them see him as more of a demon. No, he had to get to the tower. He would be safe with Tsunade Barken, and hopefully Jiraiya was there as well. One of the villagers couldn't take it anymore and jumped at Naruto, only to be in the face by a large frying pan. What the hell are you doing? Screamed Tsuki, coming to Naruto's rescue. This is the kid that kept you safe. You're going to go against the will of the Yondaime. No, I'm here to finish what the Yondaime started. This village has been plagued by this monster long enough, shouted one of the villagers, who had clearly lost it. Naruto, go with Iruka and get to the tower. I'll hold him off as long as I can, said Tsuki. Tsuki, Naruto trailed off. Go! Shouted Tsuki as the crowd rushed him. Naruto and Iruka make their way towards the tower, pretty much running for dear life. Please be alright Tsuki, thought Naruto as he and Iruka raced along rooftops and through alleyway. At every turn, they encountered a few more villagers, intending to corner and end Naruto. Both Iruka and Naruto knew they wouldn't get there before the mobs closed them in. Iruka did what he had to in order to ensure the boy he had begun to look at as a brother made it to the Hokage safely. Iruka-sensei, what are you doing? Shouted Naruto as Iruka charged forward, creating an opening in the dozen or so villages that were forming a wall in front of them. Just go. I'll catch up, shouted Iruka. Naruto hesitated a little at first but knew that Iruka was only doing this for him. Naruto took off towards the tower, sprinting at full speed. As such, he didn't notice the final lines of defense the mobs had set. Before he knew it, one of the mob's traps had tripped him, sending him from the rooftops into an alleyway full of trash. Naruto recovered as quickly as he could, but it was too late. A crowd of at least 36 villagers had gathered around him, trapping him in the alley. One of the villagers stepped forward. A fitting place for a worthless piece of trash like you to s, demon. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.